Economic integration. Economic integration is an important feature of trade liberalization. It is a process in which more than two countries come together into a larger economic group by removing the existing barriers to trade and the discrimination along the trade frontiers. So, basically, the concept of regional economic integration implies that neighbors or even some countries which may not be neighbors but have a common interest in coming together in a geographic region come together for some kind of partnership which is meant to foster trade and economic development amongst these nations. The concept has been described in various ways. According to Tinbergen, it is the creation of the most desirable structure of international economy by removing artificial hindrances to the best possible operation and introducing with intent all desirable elements of synchronization or alliance. Bela Balasa defines it as a process and a state of affairs which encompasses measures designed to bring to end favoritism between nations or economies. According to the clause of WTO, which is called the MFN clause or the most favored nation clause, all members should be given equal treatment. Tariffs, quotas and other non-trade barriers are equally applicable to all nations irrespective of their origin. Despite this, most of the countries have separate levels of protection for or rather against different countries, with the preferences being given to certain trading partners in regional arrangements and less favorable treatment to other non-member countries who do not belong to this regional economic integration, which of course may not be of the highest order, which it doesn't have to be an economic union, but even short of that there are many stages of economic integration. So, economic integration could be of two types: negative integration, which means removal of discrimination and restrictions on the movement of goods and services amongst the member countries, or positive integration, which means modification of the integration, which means existing institutions and are modified so as to adopt new ones to remove the market distortions within an economic region.
Learning outcomes. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the various agreements followed in the world and identify different forms of economic integration. You shall be able to evaluate economic impact of formation of regional economic associations and analyze the welfare gains and losses due to economic integration, customs union in particular.
We start with the discussion on the form of economic integration. The degree of economic integration varies greatly amongst different regional arrangements depending upon their economic and political unification. Regional economic integration, or RTAs as they are called, can be of various forms, such as a free trade area, a preferential trade area, or a customs union, a common market, or an economic union, and as the highest form of integration, a political union. NAFTA is an example of a free trade area, whereas the European Union, the EU, is an has evolved from the common market in the form of a regional economic integration. The European Common Market was the predecessor of the EU. At present, the European Union is an economic union, but still it has not become a political union. The political union, as we have stated, is the highest form of economic integration. This apart, the EU also has another form of economic integration, which is a monetary union. A monetary union has got a common currency. However, all the countries involved in the European Union have their own central banks, and of course there is also something called the European Central Bank. The major forms of economic integration are identified and discussed as follows. The Preferential Trade Agreement, or the PTA, is a form of a trading union in which the participating nations reduce the tariffs and other barriers for each other. But this is a first step, and it is the loosest stage of economic integration. And in this stage, the tariffs are not completely removed, but the rate of tariff is gradually lowered, and some degree of tariffs exist. An example would be the British Commonwealth Preference Scheme established by the United Kingdom with members of the British Empire. Then we have a free trade area consists of ways and means to reduce or eliminate trade and non-tariff barriers amongst member countries, while still continuing to have barriers with the rest of the world. So, barriers to trade between the individual PTA members and non-member nations could have different rates and different levels of barriers, which are determined by each member country as per their own policy. Thus, there are two distinguishing characteristics of a free trade area. The first characteristic is that liberalization of trade amongst the member countries, and the second is the removal of trade barriers placed against the member countries. The North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, is between United States, Canada and Mexico, and this is a pertinent example of a free trade area. Other examples could be the European Free Trade Area, the Greater Arab Free Trade Area, and so on. Now, the next stage of economic integration is the preferential trade arrangement or agreement, wherein there are preferential rates depending upon the economic and political relations. So, in fact, most economic unions or customs unions, they begin with preferential trading arrangements, then they go on to free trade areas or free trade agreements, and next in that order comes a customs union. In a customs union, the members are needed to remove trade barriers for each other by taking steps towards economic integration, and by further applying similar barriers to trade with the non-member countries. In general, they form a common external tariff with no tariff amongst the member countries. For example, all the members of a customs union might agree to have 10% tariff against the rest of the world, that is the non-member countries, while previously each country had different and unique tariff levels with the rest of the world. The imposition of a common tariff implies a convergence of trade policy across member countries, and through such a trade policy a convergence occurs and there is a pooling of the national sovereignty. So while different countries have their own sovereignty, but it is like a social contract where all of them agree to have a common tariff against the rest of the world. The European Community, which is now called the European Union, was the world's most evolved and well-known customs union for many years. The European Community created a common agricultural policy, which is called CAP, for all member states. This CAP was and still remains, it is characterized by the variable levy system, which limits most agricultural imports from non-member countries by applying a common import duty. South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho and Swaziland have established the Southern African Customs Union SACU in 1969, and as a continuance of their customs union arrangements, which were in force since 1910. Now, there is also a form of economic integration called the common market. A common market includes all the aspects of a customs union, but takes the integration one step further by permitting free movement of goods and services and labor as well as capital amongst the member nations. It includes the mobility of capital, labor as well as technology. The mobility of labor requires that the member countries develop a common visa policy, a common immigration policy, and also a common position on residency. That is, that members of one country can go and reside in another country, and by agreement this policy is adopted as an open policy on equal terms. Additionally, the member countries would develop common policies to harmonize the standards and have mutual recognition or acceptance for each other's standards on an agreed minimum standards. These standards could relate to products, their quality, or to other services. An example of standards requiring common policies include the standards on subsidies, the standards on health and safety, the standards on antitrust laws, and professional licensing standards, to name a few. In January 1993, the EU moved closer to a full common market status by implementing what is called the Single European Act, which consists of provisions to remove some or all tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade in goods and services, including labor as well as capital. The highest stage of economic integration, apart from the political union, is the economic union. The economic union represents the most complete form of economic integration. Member nations are integrated socially in terms of taxation, in terms of fiscal and monetary policy, and they have a harmonized and unified approach as far as all these dimensions of the economy is concerned. Their characteristic is to seek an economic integration through harmonization of fiscal and monetary policies, creating a common currency which has been referred to as a monetary union, and by establishing certain bodies which are known as supranational governing authority. For example, the supranational or supranational, that is above the nation, this kind of an institution exists in the European Union, like we have the European Parliament, which is established by the European Union. Belgium and Luxembourg formed an economic union as early as the 1920s. This was known as the Benelux Union. The European Union has adopted regulations for creating a full economic union with common banking laws, coordinated macroeconomic policy, and a common European currency which was implemented in the year 2000. So, there are different forms of economic integration with different degrees of economic integration amongst the member countries and with respect to the non-member countries. And it is also to be noted that the reduction in tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade in the regional trading arrangements has both a positive and a negative consequence. These barriers have both benefits as well as costs. These barriers can be, the benefits and costs can be actually observed and measured. The favorable effect of on the world trade is known as trade creation, but there is also a negative effect which is known as trade diversion. Trade creation is the creation of added or additional or new trade because of the removal of tariffs amongst the member countries. But there is something called trade diversion. Now, trade diversion happens because the member countries are importing from another member country, even if the other member country is not the most efficient source of import. So, this way what happens is that the countries as a whole, the members of an economic union as a whole, they suffer because instead of importing from a non-member country, which would otherwise be the most efficient source for import, they instead go for another member country for importing just because the tariff has been reduced. Now, this effect is known as trade diversion, and this is a negative effect of economic integration. GATT and WTO allows for such exceptions to what we have earlier described as the most favored nation status, and so therefore regional trading agreements are an exception to the MFN rule. In order to receive this exemption, it was important to show that the level of protection after the implementation would not be higher on an average for the member countries before the implementation, which means that the criterion for getting an exemption from the MFN status is that on the whole it should lead to liberalization on the whole it should lead to a reduction in the tariff. So this exemption implies that the assumption of trade creation is generally larger than the assumption or the impact of trade diversion, and this has been supported empirically as well. But this does not mean that trade diversion is insignificant. Both these concepts in the context of a customs union will be studied as we go ahead in the module. We now move over to the next topic, which is the static effects of a customs union. The formation of a customs union has both static as well as dynamic effects on the countries involved. In this section, we analyze the static effects. Jacob Winer, who is credited with the customs union theory, had presented this theory in 1950. He presented a formal analysis that tariff preferences can either improve resource allocation or worsen them. Economic integration actually does both. Liberalized trade by lowering the tariff rates or zero restrictions may distort trade by forcing inside consumers to pay different prices for identical goods in the same market location depending upon the product origin. Countries which are not a part of the trading bloc, they generally have such an argument that due to the economic integration such a type within the bloc, the level of trade increases, whereas it falls down when it comes to non-member countries. So there are two views on economic integration. Some say that regional blocs actually increase the efficiency, and while others say that regional blocs reduce the efficiency. The static welfare effects resulting from the formation of a customs union would be better understood in terms of trade creation and trade diversion.
We will now discuss the concept of trade creation in detail. Trade creation is said to happen when domestic production of one member nation is replaced by lower cost imports from another member nation. The trade creation effect causes efficiency gains for member nations because some countries shift from a higher cost domestic source of supply of an item to a lower cost foreign source. Trade creation increases welfare. Member countries eventually specialize in producing those items for which they have a comparative advantage. Let us take three countries, A, B, and C. PB and PC represents the price of the good in country B and country C before trade. Also, country A imposes specific tariff on both countries, the amount of tariff represented by the dotted green lines. The autarky price in country A is PA. With tariffs, the price of importing the good from country B and C rises, and hence country A decides to supply itself the whole domestic demand, and S1 is equal to D1. Suppose now country A decides to form a customs union with country B. Then tariff from country B will be eliminated. So the price of importing the good from country B is now PB, but from country C it is PCT. Since PB is less than PA, country A would now import the product from country B. At the lower price PB, imports would rise to the blue line distance, or d square minus s square. Since trade now occurs with the customs union and it did not occur before, trade is said to be created. Welfare effects. Consumer surplus is equal to A plus B plus C. Producer surplus is equal to minus A. Government revenue is equal to 0. National welfare is equal to B plus C. Trade creation imports from 0 to d square minus s square with the formation of customs union. Let us now discuss trade diversion. Trade diversion is said to happen when lower cost imports from a non-member nation are prevented from entering the regional bloc by introducing tariff or non-tariff barriers and are replaced by higher cost imports from a member nation. Trade diversion brings down world economic well-being since it shifts production from more efficient producers outside the trading bloc to less efficient producers of the countries in the bloc. Trade diversion reduces welfare. The international distribution of resources becomes less efficient and production moves away from the pattern suggested by the theory of comparative advantage. We again take the case of three countries, country A, B, and C. The graph depicts the demand and supply curves for country A. PB and PC represent the free trade supply prices of the good from country B and C respectively. Note that country C is assumed to be competent enough to supply the product at a lower price than country B. Country A imposes specific tariff on both countries, the amount of tariff represented by the dotted green lines. The tariff raises the prices of domestic supplies to PBT and PCT respectively. Since with the tariff the product is cheaper from country C, country A will import the product from country C and will not trade with country B initially. Imports are depicted on the graph by the red line or by the distance D1 minus S1. Initial tariff revenue is given by the area C plus E, the tariff rate times the quantity imported. If we now assume the countries A and B form a custom union and A eliminates the tariff on imports from country B, the domestic prices on goods from countries B and C are now PB and PCT respectively. Since PB is less than PC, country A would import all of the product from country B and would import nothing from country C. Imports would rise to d square minus s square, denoted by the blue line. Also, since the non-distorted, that is, free trade price in country C is less than the price in country B, trade is said to be diverted from a more efficient supplier to a less efficient supplier. Several attempts to measure the static welfare effects resulting from the formation of customs union all came up with surprisingly small net static welfare gains. For European Union, these gains were estimated to be in the range of 1 to 2% of GDP. There are, however, other static welfare gains resulting from the formation of customs union. There are other welfare effects as well, which are static in nature, arising from the formation of a customs union. Customs union is a move towards free. trade will eliminate the role of customs officers and others, leading to administration savings. Customs Union acting as a single unit in international trade negotiations will likely possess much more bargaining power than the total of its members acting separately. This has been the case for the European Union.
Now let us consider the dynamic effects of a customs union. Besides the static effects, the countries forming a customs union are expected to gain in the long run in terms of the following benefits. The first benefit is that there is increased competition. Possibly the most important single gain from a customs union is the potential for increased competition. Businesses, especially those which are monopolistic or oligopolistic markets, may become sluggish and complacent because of the lack of competition due to the protection offered by the trade barriers like tariff. With the formation of a customs union, the trade barriers amongst member countries are greatly reduced or are eliminated. Now, the producers become more effective, more efficient, and since they have to compete with foreign firms within the region, some may succeed, some may merge, while other firms may have to quit. The higher level of competition is also likely to stimulate development and the adoption of new technologies, the creation of new products and services. The end result will be a lower cost of production and therefore a lower consumer price for the goods and for the services, and new products and improvements in the product quality. All of these would help the consumers of the region. It is important that the member governments, the countries' governments of the member states enforce the new trade rules if these competitive forces are to operate effectively. That is, there should not be any violation of the agreement on the part of the governments of the member countries. Another aspect is economies of scale. Another benefit of a customs union is that it leads to substantial economies of scale because the market is enlarged, and if firms which were previously serving only the domestic market expand within the entire customs union, it creates further opportunities for export. If the production process possesses economies of scale, then the increase in output lowers the per unit cost and the price charged from the consumers would be lowered, and therefore their economic welfare would increase. For instance, it has been determined that many firms in small nations like Belgium and Netherlands, before they joined the EC as it was known earlier, enjoyed economies of scale by producing for both the domestic market and for the export market. But however, after becoming a member of the EC, there was a significant increase in the economies of scale, and these firms as well as countries reduce the range of products manufactured and increase the output of the remaining products. So they could afford to implement some kind of specialization, and their plant size grew, and in the long run therefore they were reaping much larger economies of scale. The stimulus to investment. So another related aspect of economic integration is the formation of a customs union leads to the stimulation of outside investment in production and marketing facilities, to avoid the discriminatory barriers imposed on non-member countries. In order for the firms to meet the increased competition and take advantage of the enlarged markets, investment is likely to increase. In most cases, the investment in a customs union area is an alternative to export of products from the non-member countries. The larger investments made by US firms in Europe after the mid-50s and in the years and months giving away to a single European Act were fostered by their desire not to exclude the large potential market. Investing ensured that their products would not be restricted by the tariffs and non-tariff barriers. Therefore, this leads to a substitution of export by the non-member countries with investment in the form of foreign direct investment or in the form of setting up multinationals within the European Union. Then we have another advantage, which is efficient resource allocation. Finally, if a customs union is a regular market and there is free movement of labor and capital, it stimulates the more efficient use of economic resources of the complete bloc. On the whole, the effectiveness of industries and the individual firms would be likely to increase the efficiency, and with the access of low cost capital and labor, this would imply that to the consumers the price at which goods are produced and supplied to the consumers would be lower, and once the prices go down, the real incomes would be higher. These dynamic gains resulting from the formation of a customs union are believed to be much greater than the static gains discussed earlier and actually proved to be very, very significant. Indeed, the United Kingdom joined the EU in 1973 primarily because of the potential for long-term dynamic gains. Recent empirical studies seem to indicate that these dynamic gains are about 5 to 6 times larger than the static gains. Well, in summary, now let us see what economic integration means and what are the various aspects of economic integration. Economic integration is the policy of reducing or simply putting an end to the trade and the tariff and non-tariff barriers amongst various nations. More often these nations belong to a certain region and very often they are contiguous to each other, they are sharing borders, as in the case of the European Union. This put together, they are known as a regional bloc, and there are many stages and forms of economic integration. To begin with, you may have preferential trade agreement, then these countries move on to a free trade area, and then a common market, a customs union, an economic union, and as in the case of the European Union, a monetary union, and finally the highest stage of economic integration is a political union. History has provided us with various examples of economic integration, the most prominent ones being NAFTA in North America and the European Union. In short, the static effects of the customs union could be summarized as two concepts: the trade creation and trade diversion. Trade creation happens when the domestic production of member nations is replaced by lower cost imports from another member nation. trade creation increases welfare as there is an expansion of trade through this process. Trade diversion is said to happen when the lower cost imports from a non-member country are prevented from entering into the regional bloc by virtue of the common tariffs against the non-members, and they are replaced by higher cost imports from the member countries because the member countries are prompted to buy these higher cost imports because the tariffs are absent amongst member countries. So, trade diversion actually reduces the economic welfare. So, trade creation improves economic welfare, trade diversion reduces economic welfare. There are dynamic gains. The long-term effects of a customs union lead to greater competition and hence greater efficiency, a stimulus to foreign investment, and there would be more of technological change and innovation. It would lead to greater economic growth and so on. The dynamic gains resulting from the formation of a customs union are believed to be much greater than the static gains.